Well, Mayor Zach, welcome back to Mayor's Monday here at WSAU and WSAU.com. We're inside today because the fall weather's been less than ideal here lately, and everything's kind of seemingly winding down. But you and I are just talking a little bit. Speaking of fall weather, that of course means leaf pickup, drop-off, composting, things like that are going to get underway here in the city of Wisconsin Rapids pretty soon.
That's right. So residents that take advantage of the curbside collection or pickup of their leaf and some of their yard waste, that service will be beginning here very soon. So we encourage residents to check out the city website where all the schedule and all of the information will be posted out there. Some of the basics are we don't accept Tide bags because our crews, the means and methods of which we collect that stuff, they take it and they dump it in one of our former garbage trucks. Actually, that's how it's collected. And so there's also some rules related to some of the brush pickup activities that we do throughout the fall. As you mentioned, with the fall weather, we've had some wind and a lot of moisture, and so people might be cleaning up branches and twigs from their yard, and so make sure that residents follow the rules and they check those right out on the city's website. Right on the homepage, there's a yard and compost site pickup. Also a reminder that our two compost sites in the city, our east and west side compost sites, are open for the fall, and the hours are posted on the city website as well.
So and that's exactly what you do with that. Kind of recycle that stuff, and it goes right back into the city. Just a nice little benefit for residents.
It is, yeah. It's a highly utilized service, not only for our residents, but we open it up to non-residents. So they have a pass and a fee associated with it. So, but we know it's a program that we love our trees, and we got to deal with them every year, and so we make it pretty easy for residents here in the city to take advantage of that service.
So and that information again available on the city website, correct?
WIRapids.org.
All right. Well, we'll have to inform people to check that out and utilize that again as the seasons change and we get ready to pass over into the winter season. Not too far off.
Hopefully not. Hopefully further off than what you're making it sound. I don't like the thought of that, Michael.
Absolutely. Well, my home state of South Dakota had snow last week, so it's never too early to start thinking about it.
Sure.
Right? You and I, I'm sure we've both trick or treated in the blizzard of 91 or 92. So
right.
Yeah, we got to every now and then remind us that things could be a little worse.
Early,
than they
yeah.
are. But one of the other things that we wanted to bring up and talk about, and of course, and it's maybe one of the more mundane things, maybe one of the more things people don't like to talk about when they get into city government, but it is budgeting season,
right.
And I'm sure you're hard at work on what the 2019 budget is going to look like for the city.
Yeah, we're in the final stages of preparing a formal and final version of what I would call the executive budget. In our model of government, the strong mayor form of government, I present an executive budget to the city council for their consideration and their debate. We actually began budget discussions and meetings already in advance of a final balanced budget. And just to kind of give some perspective on 2019's operating budget, within levy limits that the state imposed on municipalities, our budget could only grow about $139,000 next year. So what that means is we have to account for all of our cost increases, health insurance, any wage increases, any costs of doing business. We deal with a lot of suppliers for different materials, whether it's in street reconstruction projects or service providers that do other services for the city. Generally, those costs don't remain flat, but our city budget, by and large, we have about a $34 million operating budget. By and large, that budget has to remain flat due to state law and state constraints. So it's very challenging to balance the city's budget, especially when you look at health insurance costs go up anywhere between 5 and 8% any year. So we're working diligently on balancing the city budget. We're about $100,000 short of a full balanced budget, so we're looking for ways within the budget to pare back our state transportation aids. So the money that the state provides cities, and actually the aid that we received dropped this coming year. So in effect, we're receiving less money from the state. The public expects us to do as much or more every year to do road maintenance and road repairs. So we're very concerned that we're going to have to make cuts across various departments and various activities just to balance the city's budget here in Wisconsin Rapids. So working through that process, I find it interesting. As kind of a local government guru, I find that process exciting. But I know some folks, you're having to pick winners and losers sometimes because all it comes down to what you have to the ability to afford within your budget. So that's kind of the constraints. $139 is not a lot of new money when you're trying to factor in what residents are expecting us to provide that same level of service year over year. A couple of big ticket items. We're actually going to be replacing one of our fire engines, and that's about a $750,000 expense. So we're likely going to borrow for all of that, since there's no way we could incorporate that fully into our operating budget. We set money aside annually for those types of investments, but it's hard to set aside $750,000 for a single purchase. So we're going to be borrowing for a portion of that. As far as other items in the budget, we're going to be putting forth phase 2 of our riverfront project. It's going to look different than our first phase. Our first phase grew in scope and budget, really because we got involved with the DNR permitting process, and they weren't willing to permit some things, so we had to make changes along the way. This project, phase 2 that we're going to propose, will be 50% funded by a state grant. So we're expecting that project to be about $1.2 million. So locally we'll have to fund $500,000 to $600,000. And as we've seen our riverfront investment come and take shape throughout the summer and fall, we're very excited about that project, because residents are now seeing kind of what does this mean and what is this going to look like. So not only are we doing the bank stabilization, which in cases of flooding events, as we're having right now, with all the rainfall and the ground being saturated, we need to take care of these riverbanks, or we're just going to lose them in major flooding events, especially as they're becoming more frequent and perhaps growing in scale over time. So we're putting forth a smaller phase 2 project next year in our riverfront development, and so that really kind of rounds out the 2019 annual budget process.
So you kind of talked about some of the things that are fun about government there, like the riverfront project, and being able to build something that the residents can look at and be proud of their city. And then, of course, some of the not so fun stuff that really, for lack of a better term, doesn't exactly make you a popular guy sometimes in city government. But those are the decisions that have to be made, whether the cuts or somebody doesn't get exactly everything that they want, and those decisions have got to fall to somebody.
That's right. Yeah, whether you like the job or not, it comes with the territory, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's, of course, a process that's just ongoing right now. When can we start to see maybe the final resolution or the final approved budget go towards the
We'll see it on
council?
the third Tuesday, or third regular November Common Council meeting. So we'll have a series of budget meetings over the course of the next couple of weeks. We did public safety last week. We're going to be doing public works this week, and so therefore the council members are going to get an opportunity to wade through the budget, ask questions, learn about the various initiatives and operations that the city sets forth through its budget process every year.
Yep. So we'll be looking forward to the results of that here in the coming weeks then, because of course, believe it or not, we mentioned it, almost towards the end of the year and almost towards a brand new budgeting year here down in Wisconsin Rapids. You mentioned some of those projects that we've been following, the things like the YMCA and other projects don't really have a whole lot of updates on those right now, but you do have a few, one project that's not exactly yours, but it kind of in a way is, because we've found out that the new owners of the paper mill over in Buren are going to be sticking nearly $200 million, I believe it was $175 million into that mill, but that's going to have a direct impact here on Wisconsin Rapids as well, because you're just to the south of that.
That's right. Historically, the mills in Wisconsin Rapids area, at least the ones in Stevens Point, Wisconsin Rapids, and Buren, were all under one ownership. And when those mills sold off, the Department of Justice had an expectation that they separate ownership for antitrust purposes, and as the market has kind of dwindled for the certain development of paper products, they directed them to have separate ownership, so they ended up selling that off. Well, most recently, as you mentioned, the mill in Buren became under new ownership, and that new ownership has got, as was announced this week, big plans. And why I think it's significant is, number one, the mill in Wisconsin Rapids does provide services to the Buren operation, so there's a direct connection and relationship, business relationship between those two entities. But further, they employ over 300 people. And many of those people live in Wisconsin Rapids or the surrounding communities. So the extent that our economy has some good news as it relates to the production of paper, an industry that's been very challenged and faced a lot of headwinds over the last 5 and 10 years as substitution has occurred in the advent of iPhones and tablets and other things. So we're very excited about the investment that ND Paper is making in that facility, and it'll actually create, I think they've announced 27 new jobs, in addition to all the construction activity that'll come as a result of investing nearly $200 million of private capital.
Again, Buren, it's not your municipality. It's
Right.
just kind of right there to the north in the north central
Yeah, I
part
think
of
if the map
Wisconsin
is on
Rapids.
here,
Right,
yeah, right,
there.
exactly,
The
right
map's
behind
right
me.
there.
Yeah, we share a boundary with Buren.
So, but how? I mean, since you are kind of the nearest, significant or the nearest town to Buren, I mean, when do they ever call you up and say, "Hey, could we get a hand with something like this?" Or, "Hey, we need to work together on this process to try and get this construction going"? And do you have any involvement with that?
Well, we have a lot of relationships with a lot of our municipalities in the area. Some in particular, like Buren, we provide EMS service. So you call 911 in Buren, Wisconsin Rapids is responding. In other cases, also in the case of Buren, we provide wastewater treatment services to their residents as well as to their business park. In another case, we provide water to them. So I think in electricity. So there's a whole host of ways. Buren is dependent upon Wisconsin Rapids as much as Wisconsin Rapids is dependent upon Buren for some customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. So little skin in the game with that, and it's got to be good, to see something like that come up in your area that's going to benefit Wisconsin Rapids, and you can say, yeah, I really don't have to do much with this except maybe shake a few hands, right?
Right. Well, that's what everyone notices, right? It's
Right.
always the behind-the-scenes negotiation of so many deals and aspects of deals that become a little bit challenging and prolonged sometimes that public doesn't really see or can't appreciate because they're not seeing it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that goes on behind these doors in business. That's what I've learned, in the few years I've been doing this as well. Is people would be surprised sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
And one more thing we wanted to talk about before we let you go. You have some high profile positions that you're going to be looking for as far as was it economic development is concerned, and as far as ambassadors for the city as well.
Yeah,
right?
our Chamber of Commerce is looking for a chamber executive, and our Convention and Visitors Bureau also has a vacancy in its director's position. So both organizations are looking for motivated, highly qualified, and energetic individuals to lead their mission or meet their mission and lead their organizations. So we're very hopeful that folks in the region that might have expertise to lend in either of those capacities in tourism or business development at the Chamber of Commerce, that those folks reach out to those organizations, submit their application for consideration, because very important organizations in our community to help meet our objectives, both economic and from a tourism perspective as well.
Yeah, you really have to be kind of a cheerleader for the community. Right. You really have to love this community and really have to sell this community to help bring in some of those dollars and some of those tourists.
Exactly.
So any particular person you want them to reach out to if they are interested in possibly submitting an application?
Well, folks that have difficulty finding who to apply with or where to apply, they certainly can reach out to me. My contact information's online. I'm pretty responsive to email, so if folks want to do that way, I don't need to see their resume, just I can help steer them or connect them to the right individuals. But generally the president of the board or a search and screen committee, which generally the job postings will have that information in it as well.
Anything else that we should know then before we let you go for the month?
No, looking forward to getting through fall and wrapping up a bunch of construction projects. I know as the weather turns, it gives everyone concern and pause that we're going to wrap up sidewalk projects, curb and gutter, street reconstruction, all of those things. So hopefully Mother Nature cooperates, that things can dry out for a while, and for us to wrap up some of these big projects that we've got happening here in the city.
Yeah, for the city workers and for the agriculture community as well. It could be combining in December. Who knows with the way things are going lately.
Let's hope not, but it very well could be, right?
Very well. Well, we appreciate the time as always, and we'll look forward to chatting again next month.
Thanks, Mike.